Hello, thanks for joining us on the news. I'm Ruth Aguele. My sign language interpreter is John Bamidele. Let's bring you the headlines. President of Senate commends courage of President Bola Tinubu in removing subsidy of petroleum products. INEC commences post-review of 2023 general elections. And South Africa confirms Russian President Vladimir Putin will not be attending BRICS summit. President Bola Tinubu is imploring Muslims and Nigerians generally to imbibe the important values of patience, perseverance, and faithfulness, which were at the roots of the decision by Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, to migrate from Mecca to Medina 1,445 years ago. The president, in his personal statement of felicitations to Muslims in Nigeria and around the world, as they witness the end of another Hijrah lunar calendar, he prays the incoming year ushers in a more peaceful and prosperous period. President Tinubu says as Nigerians persevere and struggle to confront the present challenges and the temporary pain they experience, he enjoins them to remain hopeful that there is light and prosperity at the end of the tunnel. He says his team is leaving no stone unturned in the bid to deliver on the promises he made in spite of the present difficulties. As the Muslims usher in the new Islamic year, he urges them all to engage in prayers and supplications to God Almighty to direct and protect Nigeria's path to greatness and prosperity. From the legislature, the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, has again commended the courage of President Bola Tinubu in removing the subsidy of petroleum products, saying it was in the economic interest of Nigeria. He stated this while hosting a delegation of National Assembly lawmakers from Ekiti State, led by Governor Abiodun Oyebanji. Akpabio says the policy has some implications, but in the long run, it will serve the interest of the citizens.
In less than 2 months in office so far, he has demonstrated capacity. He has shown that a politician has come to governance. And one of the most difficult things Nigeria had was the continuous fuel subsidy, which we knew all along that we're subsidizing for the consumption of all West Africans. But nobody could say it out. We used to talk with hushed tones. We knew that the quantity of fuel, PMS, this was said to be consumed by Nigerians, were fake. They were not real, but nobody could take action. We knew that fuel subsidy was killing the economy.
Together, sir, we will ensure that we save to sail above with Mr. President.
The visit was to appreciate the Senate for appointing Okpeyemi Bamidele as the Senate leader. The state delegation expressed resolve to work closely with the National Assembly for their mutual benefit. The House of Representatives has rejected a motion to suspend the latest increase in the pump price of petrol from 514 naira to 617 naira by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited. Debating the recent hike in cost of petrol under a motion of urgent public importance, the House, however, resolves to constitute an ad hoc committee to investigate frequent hike in pump price of petrol and report back to the House for further legislative action.
Expecting a hike in price of food in the coming days because the price of fuel affects the price of everything in the market. Mr. Speaker, this is the People's House and we represent the interests of Nigerians. And if this is allowed to continue, the fear is that fuel price will be sold at 1,000 naira per litre by the end of the year. So my prayer is that the House do set up an ad hoc committee to look into the circumstances surrounding the increment in the price of fuel by the NNPCL.
For the House to suspend the increase in the fuel by NNPC pending their appearance to this hallowed committee that we are about to set, that the price be reverted, let it be what it is a few days to status before they could appear before the committee. I so amend, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, let me put it to question. Those in support that will stop the price increase subject to investigation, say aye. Aye. Those against, say nay. The nays have it. We should not preempt the committee. Maybe it's an investigative ad hoc committee. It will not be good for us to preempt them. Let's allow them do their job, and at the end of the day, we'll be able to work with their resolution. But all we will ask the committee when set up is that they should do their job with the speed of the light. And with the speed of light.
Correspondent Mitari Ikpan reports that the House also adopted a motion urging the President to lift the embargo on employment in ministries, departments and agencies of the federal government. South Africa confirms that Russian President Vladimir Putin will not be attending BRICS summit, and the months of speculations that he could be detained. Uche Ugochukwu will tell us about it.
Russian President Vladimir Putin's potential visit has been a thorny diplomatic issue for South Africa. The country's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, will instead represent Russia. The Russian leader is the target of an International Criminal Court arrest warrant, a provision that South Africa, as an ICC member, would be expected to implement were he to set foot in the country. Spokesman for President Cyril Ramaphosa, Vincent Megwanya, said the decision for President Vladimir Putin not to attend the summit follows a number of consultations held by Ramaphosa in recent months, the most recent of which took place Tuesday night. South Africa is the current chair of the BRICS group, a gathering of heavyweights that also includes Brazil, Russia, India and China, and which sees itself as a counterweight to Western economic domination. Putin was formally invited to a BRICS summit due to take place in Johannesburg between August 22 and 24, but Pretoria has been under heavy domestic and international pressure not to host him. President Ramaphosa is confident that the summit will be a success and calls on the nation to extend the necessary hospitality to the many delegates who will arrive from the various parts of the continent and the globe. Putin is sought by the ICC over accusations that Russia unlawfully deported Ukrainian children. Uche Ugochukwu, NTA News.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says COVID-19, the climate crisis and widespread conflict, including Russia's invasion of Ukraine, have affected the world's fragile and limited progress. He made this clear while addressing a high-level political forum on sustainable development that the world was off track well before these upheavals. Adobla Brooksland Sunday reports.
The high-level political forum on sustainable development is to support the mid-term review of the implementation of the SDGs and the preparations for the 2023 SDG summits. United Nations scribe Antonio Guterres said this is a high-level political forum and the world is crying out for high-level political action.
Action to make the sustainable development goals a reality for everyone, everywhere. Without it, the 2030 promise is in danger of slipping away.
Guterres told the forum that the 2030 promise is in danger of slipping away, showing disillusionment, mistrust and resentment, putting the planet at risk, failing women and girls, as well as denying opportunity and hope for millions of people.
Change is possible. Backsliding is not inevitable. Poverty, pollution and gender inequality are not preordained. They are trends that can be reversed, problems that can be solved, tragedies that can be averted, lives that can be saved. And together we can deliver.
President of the General Assembly, Chaba Korosi, charged the forum to be courageous as all hope is not lost.
Be ambitious. Be determined in your vision and promises of a peaceful, prosperous and sustainable future. Let us keep up the promise of the 2030 agenda, the promise we have made to our 8 billion stakeholders. Let us transform the world. Let us save the world.
As we move forward, it is imperative that the 2030 agenda continue to be our roadmap for the way ahead. Governments, organizations, and individuals around the world must persevere in efforts to achieve the SDGs by 2030.
Accelerating the recovery from the coronavirus disease and the full implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development at all levels is the theme of the meeting. Adebola Brooksland, NTA News.
A productive working meeting in Abuja between Senior Vice President of the African Development Bank Group, Bajabulile, that's a tongue twister actually, Swazi Shabalala, and a delegation from the World Bank led by Managing Director for Operations, Arna Berdi, has resulted in mutual agreement to identify key areas for intervention and collaboration. This collaboration strengthens efforts to tackle poverty and climate change, develop various sectors including energy and agriculture, and deal with pandemics. The meeting, which took place at the bank group's headquarters in Abuja, built upon previous discussions between World Bank President Ajay Banga and the President of the African Development Bank Group, Akinwumi Adesina. Ms. Shabalala pointed out the benefits of the meeting, which helped to strengthen efforts already made to tackle poverty and climate change, build young people's capacity for promoting small and medium-sized businesses, develop the energy, agricultural and other sectors. Both leaders agreed to work together to achieve transformative results in Africa. They also emphasized the role of the private sector in mobilizing capital resources. United Nations is encouraging all Nigerians to rise up to the new project Operation Feed Yourself by joining farm estates, farming clusters and backyard farming. Adebola Brooksland reports that this was the position of the United Nations Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, as well as all the key players at the pre-food system stock-taking moments in Abuja.
Fear of the world not achieving the Sustainable Development Goal of zero hunger if urgent steps are not taken necessitated the United Nations call on all countries to come up with modalities to improve food systems, a call Nigeria swiftly keyed into. Permanent Secretary, Budget and National Planning, Nebulisa Neko, and other key players at this stock-taking moments media engagement affirmed that the declaration of state of emergency on food security by President Bola Tinubu underscores government's commitment to feed the nation.
Nations, communities and households are food secured when everyone have access to healthy diet at all times and at a price that is affordable and according to their preferences for a productive life.
If you plant at the back of your house, in front of your house, and I plant at the back of my house and in front of my house, we'll discover that it is difficult for us to complain of not having something to eat.
I guess the only problem is that the pace of progress is not keeping up with the scale of the challenge.
Lack of the right technology and climate change are some of the barriers of food sufficiency in Nigeria.
Nigeria is susceptible to the adverse effect of climate change, such as erratic rainfall, droughts and floods. In the last couple of years, we have seen escalation in the extreme weather events.
For development partners, food security cannot be achieved without collaboration.
We have a really chance to work together for more progress. But it really has to be about action, about delivery.
We focus more on the rural smallholder farmers because we believe these are the persons feeding the entire population.
Dry season farming through micro and macro irrigation is being encouraged to meet the set targets where no one goes to bed hungry. Adebola Brooksland Sunday, NTA News.
Time for us to take a breather. We'll be back. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Thai reformist leader Peter Limjaroenrat's bid to become Prime Minister ends Wednesday, despite his party winning the most votes in May elections. Uche Ugochukwu reports that this is after the military and pro-royalist establishment blocked his bid for power.
Peter's Move Forward party has ridden high on the support of young and urban Thais, frustrated by nearly a decade of army-backed rule. But its efforts to form a government have stumbled. The 42-year-old was dramatically suspended from parliament while seated in the chamber for discussions on his candidacy, which came to an end when lawmakers voted to refuse considering him for a second ballot. Peter's suspension came when Thailand's Constitutional Court said it would proceed with a case that could see the leader disqualified from parliament altogether for owning shares in a media company. Lawmakers are forbidden from doing so under Thailand's constitution, though the television station in question has not broadcast since 2007. Peter, Harvard-educated and wealthy from a family-run agri-food business, has said the shares were inherited from his father. He has 15 days to respond to the case. After he left the parliament, lawmakers voted by a large margin to rule that he could not be considered for the post a second time. Dozens of supporters cried and shouted abuse at a large riot police cordon guarding the gates of parliament after news of Peter's suspension broke. Protesters began gathering in the evening for a public rally near Bangkok's Democracy Monument, and police said they were prepared for any unrest. Uche Ugochukwu, NTA News.
With the 2023 elections and the politicking associated with it now gone, it is time for women to show example and leadership by bonding and working together to serve the people. Nigeria's First Lady Oluremi Tinubu stated this while interacting with female federal lawmakers who paid her a courtesy visit at the villa. While urging the lawmakers not to take the mandate of the people for granted, the First Lady advised them to work together across party lines to address challenges facing their constituencies in order to achieve the renewed hope agenda of the present administration.
But just make sure that you keep being faithful to your constituents. Carry them along as much as you can. Keep doing good. That's why you are here. Whatever you feel is right for your constituents, that's what you pursue. And that's the independence you really enjoy.
Earlier, one of the lawmakers, Honorable Kafilat Ogara, representing Koshofe Federal constituency in Lagos, had applauded the First Lady for being a good example to female legislators and asked for her support.
And we are also here to let you know that we are just a call away. Whatever special projects you have, whatever you need us to do with you to support this government, we are readily available to work with you now. Thank you.
For the First Lady, the meeting with the lawmakers drawn from the two chambers of the National Assembly is a warm reminder of her time at the Senate, where she spent 12 impactful years. Citizen-derived solutions and action in partnership with a committed, credible platform and government are possible to re-energize Nigerians' nationhood. These were some of the positions of stakeholders at the presentation of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations and its partners 2022 Citizens Summit. Reports titled Rebooting Nigeria 2.0. Let's hear from Hamman Japani.
In August 2022, the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations kick-started a citizen summit that looked at Nigeria where we missed it, the need to rethink and return, paths to reinvent our nationhood, framework, concept, solutions, and actions, rebuilding trust, enabling the culture and practice of non-violent communication, among other sub-themes. A summit report drafting committee was inaugurated. Its findings will be presented to the Federal Executive Council, National Assembly, Judiciary, and other stakeholders that are expected to implement them at all levels of government. 11 months on, the report of that committee is now ready with 100 recommendations.
I feel very privileged to have been part of the project, which I believe will assist the government and the good people of Nigeria in charting a new course for the economic, political, educational, and social development of Nigeria.
For NIPR, the work has just begun. It is expected to lead a citizen charter of national reconciliation, integration, and development.
For the painstaking efforts put in preparing and presenting this very important report that we hope will lead to the process of changing our country for good.
But we have to rebuild these mindsets. So this report contains strategies that will rebuild the new Nigerians, that will then rebuild the new Nigeria.
Stakeholders believe that the summit will provide the need to get all sectors working together through a credible, neutral, and trusted platform, such as the NIPR Citizen Summit.
NIPR, in trying to help us reboot, and that's why I found the title of the book very apt. And I said to the president, indeed, we need serious rebooting as a nation.
This momentous achievement showcases the power of collaboration and collective action in driving positive change in our nation.
That event did not just end up as a talk shop, but rather it has also vetted workable strategies. It's calling on Nigerians to love Nigeria and shun fake news and hate speeches.
The NIPR said the presentation of this report marks the beginning of the third strategy of the summit, which is the systematic implementation of the outcomes. Hamad Jabani, NTA News.
The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has commenced a post-election review of the 2023 general elections. Chairman of the Commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, says the review is aimed at improving the conduct of future elections and consolidation of democracy in Nigeria. Timothy Yusuf reports.
The post-election review of the 2023 general election by INEC is commencing, with meeting all the electoral officers and transport unions that participated in the exercise. They are considered critical stakeholders in the electoral process.
Today we are here to attend to the question of how far and how well we performed in our respective duties during the election.
They are undertaking a holistic review of the 2023 general election with a view to addressing lessons learned in the conduct of 2023 polls and recommendations for future elections. INEC Chairman Professor Mahmoud Yakubu believes that the 2023 general election was a success owing to some innovations in technology, and for the first time, national elections were not postponed.
We can conduct a review of the elections without involving those who made the election tick. And through your hard work and the support of the Commission, for the first time in the last 4 electoral cycles, presidential and National Assembly elections were not postponed even for 1 hour.
Next in line for post-election review will be debriefing of collation and returning officers. The Commission is also set to interface with political party leaders, media executives, and civil society organizations in the coming days. Timothy Yusuf, NTA News.
Plans are underway to establish electric vehicle charging stations, we hear, across the country before the end of the year. This is as the National Automotive Design and Development Council seeks to dominate the automotive industry with the introduction of additional electric vehicles. Comfort Amodu reports.
There have been concerted efforts and strategies by the federal government to develop the Nigerian automotive industry, which includes the adoption of the National Automotive Industry Development Plan in Nigeria. This is targeted at increasing the manufacture and assemblage of electric vehicles and local production to about 40% by 2033. The conversation is focused on establishing electric vehicle charging stations across the country and also on the validation of the draft National Action Plan for the development of electric vehicles in the country.
We're moving on both in the NAIDP 2023 and this specific EV policy to push forward a vehicle financing scheme where Nigerians can put down just a little bit of the cost of an EV, drive it off, take it home, and then pay over 5 to 6 years. We believe this would really tremendously help towards attainability of such vehicles.
National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, NSENI, and other key players in the manufacturing sector are also collaborating with NADDC to accelerate electric mobility in Nigeria. Deliberations at the workshop also focused on the need to implement policies on local electric vehicle production, funding for infrastructure projects, and sustainable measures for stable power supply in charging stations that will be sited across the country. In Abuja, Comfort Amodu, NTA News.
And just before we go, let's find out how Thursday's weather will look like. That's the news. Thank you very much for your time. I'm Ruth Aguele. My sign language interpreter is John Bamidele. Do have a beautiful evening.